I think they have enough at linebacker. I really do, to kind of figure this thing out. I think Trotter could end up getting on the field.
Welcome back in, everybody. A Tuesday edition of Birds 365. Joined now by Ed Kracz from SI.com. Ed, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, guys. Thanks a lot for having me.
Edward, good to see you, buddy.
Johnny Mac.
We're talking cornerbacks to start because the big Sean Stevens news broke. He's going to be in. They have so many bodies at cornerback. Obviously, last season, things went in a downward trajectory pretty quickly. So understandable why they wanted to correct it. But when is it too much when you have that many bodies? You want to focus on maybe a group of them to try to get them prepared for the season. They got a whole boatload of cornerbacks, said Kracz. What do you make of it?
Well, I would channel my inner Howie Roseman and say that's a good problem to have, John. But to be honest, I never heard of Sean Stevens until last night when they signed him away from what looked like a short ticket to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I don't know. I mean, he's a 5'8" cornerback, small school guy.
Now that's interesting right away, Ed. Sorry to interrupt you, but this kid's so unknown because I did my research after it broke as well. And I saw he was at the Michigan State Pro Day, and there's some scouting stuff that he's 5'8.5". The Eagles listed him as 6 foot on their roster. It's like, which is it? That's pretty big difference. That's how much little is known about this kid.
Yeah. I don't know. Listen, when you're 5'8", you're going to claim that half inch every time. So if he's 5'8.5",
like 4 inches.
Yeah. I guess we'll see on May 20th or 23rd, whenever they.
Now I got to pay attention. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, everybody uses a different tape measure, I guess. I don't know, but can the guy play? And like you said, there's so many bodies there now. And I heard you guys talking a little bit before I came on about, this overcrowding situation they have here at cornerback. And like I said, Howie would say that's a good problem to have. Nick Sirianni would say it's a good problem to have. They have a new cornerbacks coach, new DB coach, new safety coach. They have all new coaches back there, new DC, obviously, who, we still haven't talked to yet, by the way, Vic Fangio. And here we are almost in the middle of May. They hired him 4 months ago. And, we're on the field the other day for rookie minicamp looking for him, making sure that they actually did hire him, because we haven't seen hide or hair of the guy, him or Kellen Moore, since they hired him. Every other team has made the coordinators available, as far as I know. And for some reason, the Eagles just don't want to do that for us. So assuming Vic Fangio is the DC, he's going to have a situation at cornerback to sort out. And that is a good problem to have. It's a lot of guys. And you guys are saying, you have to assume Bradbury's gone, and you're probably right. They're not going to keep a veteran corner around. Are they really going to start a rookie corner in Quinyon Mitchell? When was the last time they started a rookie cornerback? I mean, we'll have to go back in the archives to find that answer out, I think. But that's a lot of trust to have in a rookie to start at corner. And I'm assuming it would be Quinyon, but Cooper DeJean is a very capable corner too, and maybe he gets thrown into the starting job. I mean, I think those two could battle it out if they get rid of Bradbury to start. They're just not going to give it to Quinyon Mitchell because he was the first-round pick. I think we could see a battle between two rookies to start at cornerback if they part with James Bradbury, and I think they eventually will.
Yeah, what a change it's been from just a year ago when cornerback was one of their least deep parts of the roster. And all of a sudden now, as Johnny Mac pointed out, there's going to be teams waiting to see who the Eagles cut, because there's NFL-ready corners on this roster that will ultimately not make it to the final roster. But, Ed, how do you project Cooper DeJean? I know you just mentioned he could be a battling for outside cornerback. A lot has been made of his versatility, safety, slot corner, but they really have depth in that whole back end. Do you think outside corner is where they're going to put him, or could they use him on the inside or safety?
Well, I mean, I think, the story is going to be written, this summer as far as where they're going to play him. He played corner at Iowa, and, I know that's kind of probably his strongest position. I know he can play those other spots, but I think it will depend on, how he acclimates at safety. And I heard John say use him as the big nickel packages, be that extra linebacker that they bring down. I mean, I guess they could go that direction as well. But I think they're going to put him at corner initially, and this is just going to be kind of a battle. It's going to be fun to watch this cornerback battle shape up as to who is going to start opposite Slay. Will it be Bradbury, DeJean, Mitchell, Keely Ringo, who did some good things later in the season last year, struggled obviously at the beginning of his rookie year, but got better. It's going to be fascinating to see, Xander, exactly where he settles. Once camp gets rolling, OTA's coming up here soon. Maybe we'll see some different formations. I doubt it. They play these things pretty close to the vest. So that's going to be fun. Just like the right guard spot. We don't know. I mean, those are the two positions I think is right guard and corner. Who's going to start? Who's going to make the team? I mean, they're pretty deep on the offensive line as well. They have a lot of bodies they can roll through there. So I think Howie's done a really nice job putting this roster together in terms of creating competition. And that's what you want, because that's what's going to make you better in the long run.
Yeah, just to wrap things up, and we'll get to the offensive line because that's interesting as well, that right guard spot. And I know you asked Nick about Mekhi Becton, but when it comes to Cooper, because I wrote about him and I looked it up, because I think there's this narrative he can't play outside corner. The Eagles think he can play outside corner.
I do too.
So he had 705 snaps at Iowa last year. It wasn't as high as it should have been because he got injured. 630 of them were at outside corner. He had 28 snaps at the line of scrimmage, 23 in the slot, 23 more in the box, and 1 as a safety. So the move to safety is a complete projection. And the guy runs a 4.4 4.40. He's got a 38.5 vertical leap. His broad jump is over 10 feet. So he shows that explosion. He's an athlete. I think a lot of people, let's be honest, as Jeff McClain got in trouble for, will they allow a white guy to play cornerback in the NFL? This guy's an athlete. It's not like he's doing things and he's not out there and he can only play zone coverage. And he's got tremendous ball skills. I think he's an outside corner. But Darius Slay's still here. If you if you project to 2025, it's probably going to be Mitchell and DeJean, outside corner. But before then, you want to get him on the field, sort of like Cam Jurgens playing at right guard, but he's really a center. And that's where I think that's the easiest spot because they don't have linebackers. So make him that big nickel player. That would have been Sidney Brown's role if they didn't draft Cooper DeJean. That's how I think you get him on the field early.
Well, Cam Jurgens didn't get on the field early. He sat pretty much as a rookie. Yeah. He played, 25 snaps, if that, on offense. I'm not even sure it was that high. So, he sat as a rookie. Listen, if you can't earn your way onto the field, it'd be nice for him to get on the field. And I think he will get on the field. He's that good of a player. I would like to see him get trained at the position he's going to play, cornerback. Who's to say that Mitchell and DeJean are both starting this year? I know, that's far-fetched. But Slay is an older player. Yeah. We've already talked to him about how long this season is and how hard it is on the body.
He missed a bunch of games with his knee last year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, we could see 2 rookie corners, on the field at the same time at some point during this season. I would even argue to just kind of, even give Slay a few breaks during the game, even if he's healthy, just to kind of, prevent him from wearing down later in the season. Try to keep him as healthy and as fresh as you can during the first couple months. And if that means, rotating Brad or Mitchell or DeJean or Ringo, whoever it is, so be it. Because you're right. I think it helps players to get on the field. Cam Jurgens came out like gangbusters when he finally got on the field as the right guard and played well until he injured, I think it was a foot or something after the first month and spent a month on the IR. But he was playing well before he got hurt, I thought. And then he came back and he wasn't quite the same. But yeah, it'd be real beneficial for the Eagles if that's their plan in 2025 to put DeJean and Mitchell on the outside. Then yeah, it would be nice to get both those guys some time at those spots this year.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ed. I think that's a good point. And Slay is 33 years old.
Yeah.
In the NFL world, that's an old man. So we'll see what they end up doing there. Ed, we talked obviously a lot about DeJean and Mitchell to start there, but I just want to give you a chance to comment on, we haven't talked to you since the NFL draft, what the Eagles did overall. Howie did a great job, I thought, from a decision-making perspective. Obviously can't grade the players just yet, but I thought he did nice work. I thought he read the board great. Again, another year of playing his cards right, added some draft picks next year. What'd you make of Howie's overall 2024 draft?
Players aside, I mean, it was exciting because the guy's always trading, right? They're on the clock. Next thing you know, trade comes in, and we're in the media house like, oh my God, what now? You know, and you're scrambling.
I said to Johnny Mac, it's got to be tough to cover this team.
It's awful. It's awful.
It's kind of fun, and it makes it exciting, like I said, in the draft room. But yeah, it's difficult to keep track of, what picks are going, what are they getting back, and then you try to write it down to go back and look at it and study it a little bit later. And then next thing you know, there's another deal. What do you make? 8 trades in that draft?
8. And by the way, Pelissero screwed something up and had him at 9, which would have been a record, but it turned out to be 8.
Yeah, it was 8. And the best thing I liked about the draft was he got 3 picks for next year when the draft is supposed to be deeper. A lot of this was the fewest number of underclassmen that came out in the draft. I think the number was 58. And reason for that is the NIL money. You're making a lot of money now to play football and any sport really in college. So what's the rush? Why rush out to the NFL if you're going to be making maybe less than what you made in college with the NILs? But next year it's supposed to be, more of an upperclassman heavy type draft. So you assume that the talent will be a little bit deeper to pick from. And, how we landed 3 picks, a third, a fourth, and a fifth, which is really, to me, the best part of this draft. Players aside, like I said, you get a 3rd round pick. That's value. That's probably a top 100 pick. They didn't have a 4th round pick going into next year because they traded that for DeAndre Swift last year in the draft. So now you have that back. And I think it's the same pick that they traded away initially to the Lions. They got that back in the trade with Detroit. So they have that and they have a 5th. So, that to me was terrific. Terrific job by Howie Roseman. And then, I like the pick of DeJean in the 2nd round. I like trading up, and Howie admitted he kind of probably lost that trade based on the draft chart evaluator. He probably gave up a little more than he would have liked to get up.
Yeah, Jeffrey Lurie sitting right next to him, trying to egg it on.
Yeah, I don't want to go there, but that was a Jeffrey Lurie pick right there.
Yeah, probably so. I mean, when your boss is breathing down your neck because he wants to keep the DeJean, you're going to lose a trade to make that happen. And but I think it was a good pick. And Howie said afterward, Jeffrey said that it's very rare that you get 2 first-round players when you're picking in the 20s to start with. And that, to me, is what they got, is because DeJean's grade by many was a first-round pick. So they essentially got 2 first-round picks in the top 40, which is good work, again, by Howie. And then we'll see. We'll see what Jalix Hunt can become. Aeneas Smith, I think, can be of service to them. And by the way, I think he puts Britton Covey's job in jeopardy because Smith is going to be used as kind of a gadget guy. I think he's got a running back background, a receiver background, punt return. He can return kicks. It's going to be a battle there, too. We're talking about these little battles on the roster, and that's going to be one as well as the punt returner. Who's going to be the kick returner? And I like Trevor Keegan an awful lot. I mean, we talked about right guard. Who's to say he doesn't come in and win that job over Matt Hennessy and Mekhi Becton if they move him to guard, and whoever else is there? Tyler Steen, kind of the forgotten guy a little bit. Who's to say?
Starter Tyler Steen. He's the leader in the clubhouse, said Kracz.
Well, I'm not ready to go there yet. I'm not going there.
Yeah.
I think Trevor Keegan could come in and win that job.
I like Keegan a lot.
Yeah, I like Keegan a lot too. He's a captain on a national championship team.
Sound like Martin Frank.
Michigan man, Martin Frank.
Michigan man, Martin Frank.
Yeah, but I do like him school aside, Martin Frank aside. I like Trevor Keegan a lot. Dylan McMahon, I think, these comparisons to Jason Kelsey are a little bit ridiculous at this point. I mean, yeah, he's the same size. He came at the same point in the draft as Jason, but come on, let's see what he can do on the field first before we start saying.
I'm with you there. Lightning doesn't strike. Same thing with the Eagles going the international pathway program to get another Australian rugby player. Lightning ain't striking twice, but who knows? Same thing with Dylan McMahon. Maybe turns into a decent player, but I'm with you there. Right guard, you asked Nick about Mekhi Becton. I think, and I put myself in this camp, so I'll blame myself as well. My first thought when people floated that, I think our buddy Jeff Mosher was the first to float. It was like, come on, the guy's massive. Why are you going to put him at guard? But Lane Johnson's 6'6", Jordan Mailata's 6'8", Landon Dickerson is 6'6", Tyler Steen is 6'5". What the hell's the difference between 6'5" and 6'7" at this stage? If he can play, and that's the big question. Now I'm starting to think it's not so crazy. Mekhi Becton, if he wins the job, have a legitimate competition. And by the way, it's got to be Tyler Steen. It's got to be Keegan, Mekhi Becton, Matt Hennessy. You can't, Jeff Stoutland knows he'll whittle it down. I don't think he's going to give the job to Tyler Steen. I think it's going to be a legit competition, not like Cam Jurgens was last year, where Nick would say, he's not the starter, he's not the starter, he's not the starter, but nobody else got first-team reps. Right. I think somebody else is getting first-team reps. The question is who? Could it be Mekhi Becton?
Well, it could be a little premature to think he can switch to guard. I mean, that's a big transition to make from tackle to guard. You were probably there when I can't remember who described it to us, but
I was Andre Dillard.
It's like going from being on an island by yourself at tackle to all of a sudden
you were going to the bathroom. He would describe it as if you
being in a phone booth. Someone said it was like being in a phone booth, and if you don't remember what a phone booth was, anybody out there that they were pretty small. So that's kind of the comparison: is you're going from an island where you're all by yourself on this deserted island, 1-on-1 against somebody, to a phone booth where you're working elbow to elbow, surface blocking, double teaming, all these other different blocking setups that you have. It's not easy to do, and I don't know if Becton can do it. I mean, are they going to try to look at him as a guard? Is Jeff Stoutland going to kind of take him under his wing and try to teach him how to play it? Probably, but can Becton do it? I don't know. I think
Andre's description, Ed, was more colorful. His was, if your dominant hand is injured and you have to go to the bathroom, that's what it's like, if you get my point. His was more colorful.
Yeah. Andre was very philosophical. Unfortunately, he, that didn't translate onto the field. He's with the Packers now, kind of washed out in Tennessee. Nice kid, really nice kid. But, just struggling to play. But good for him. Maybe he'll write a book someday, using some of that colorful, descriptive language that he's prone to. But it's a tough transition is what I'm saying for Becton. And, again, I keep coming back to Keegan. I mean, I just think that he could wedge his way. And I know Tyler Steen, I think the Eagles, I'm not sure I think they kind of like him as a swing guy, but maybe that's changed now if Becton can come in.
Becton's here now. I think they want Tyler Steen to win the job, but they want him to win the job.
Right.
But I do think they want him to seize that job. Kenny, I don't know.
I could see that now that they have Becton, because really I thought he was going to be your swing tackle backing up, but now I think Becton could be that guy. And, maybe Becton, he could get on the field. Lane Johnson hasn't really, been as healthy these past couple of years as you'd like to see. He's kind of in and out of games. He'll miss a game, but Becton can step in then, and who knows, maybe Becton will end up being Lane Johnson's replacement after a couple of years. I don't know. He's only 25, Mekhi Becton. Yeah. He's only here on a 1-year deal. He'd have to see the benefit to sticking around if he's eventually going to take over for Johnson. He may not want to. He may want to go on to another team and be a starter right away. But Becton's going to be a fun watch too. I mean, there's a lot of good stories with this camp that will eventually come our way, and Becton's one of them. How is he going to transition to guard? You know, is he going to be happy backing up Lane and Jordan? We'll see.
And that's probably my biggest concern about Becton to guard now that it's shifted. Originally, it was size, and I've kind of gotten over that, but he's got to learn to play tackle before he can play guard. So that's my biggest issue. And it's probably not going to happen, but I do think it's interesting, and we'll see how it unfolds. With the draft, Ed, most of Howie's decisions make sense, and I always say that, and that's good. The one you can kind of nitpick about is Jalen Hunt that early, and the Eagles have acknowledged this is essentially a project player. We talked about all the cornerbacks. I mean, let's get some bodies at linebacker, Howie. What are we doing here? I got Cooper DeJean, sorry. Although maybe he turns to DeJean now that he's in Philly. I have him playing nickel linebacker, big nickel, essentially, because they don't have any linebackers.
Well, they drafted Jeremiah Trotter, brought in Zach Baun, who they like a whole lot, signed Devin White. This is how they do it.
Zach Baun's going to be an edge rusher. He's not going to be an off-ball linebacker.
Oren Burks. They brought in Oren Burks, too.
Oren Burks, right. Forgot about Oren Burks, who, I think his job might be in jeopardy with the drafting of Jeremiah Trotter. But, who knows? Again, it'd be nice if we would have had some inkling of how Vic Fangio wants to operate with his scheme before going into the draft, so we can kind of put some pieces in place here. But the fact is, we just don't know what Fangio's thinking with some of these guys and how he likes to run things. I mean, we have his body of history we can look at, but is that going to be the same, that he's done with this team? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, listen, linebacker, this is the way they do it. They're never going to draft a linebacker with the first or second round. I don't think. I mean, they've had opportunities to do it. They just don't want to do it. They prefer to bring in guys from other positions or from other teams rather in free agency. And maybe draft a linebacker late, which is what they did with Jeremiah Trotter. Now, they tried a linebacker a couple years ago in the third round, Davion Taylor. Obviously didn't work out real well.
By the way, player.
I mean, they finally go linebacker in a premium pick, and they take a project player.
Yeah. So, they got bitten there, but I think they have enough at linebacker. I really do, to kind of figure this thing out. I think Trotter could end up getting on the field at some point. Who knows about Nakobe, if he can stay healthy. But I think they have some depth that if he doesn't stay healthy, it's not like you're going to run Shaq Leonard out there after you sign him in week 11 or whenever
People
it was.
Excited about Shaq Leonard.
Yeah, that was such a desperation move. And, again, it didn't help. And you want to bring guys in. I know they had good luck with Zach Cunningham. I thought they might bring him back. I think he's still out there.
Yeah, he is.
I think they have enough. I really do. I mean, I think after you draft Trotter, you sign Burks and Baun and White, you mix them in there with Van Sumeren and
I want to see Ben Van. So that's where I am. I'm not nearly as high on the linebackers as you. I want to see Ben Van Sumeren seize a job. I don't know if he can, but I do know he's athletic. We've talked to him a lot. He's got a good mentality. He's a hard worker.
Yeah.
He picks things up quickly. He's very raw when he got here, but you saw the improvement when he was forced to play a little bit at the end of the season. Smart guy, dedicated guy. I want to see him jump up because I don't have confidence in any of them.
Well, you mentioned lightning striking twice. I mean, they had lightning strike with TJ Edwards, an undrafted kid from the Big Ten, Wisconsin.
And they let him walk, and he didn't even get paid that much.
But he's a guy that came in and was just like Van Sumeren in terms of the attitude and work ethic and wanting to get better and do well at your job. And sure enough, he comes in, Edwards, and gets better each year, got better in coverage, got better with his instincts. Everything just kind of clicked with TJ. And maybe lightning will strike twice and Ben Van Sumeren will be there.
I will say the big difference, TJ was a big-time college player. Like he was, I think was second in the Butkus Award voting. And he ran I think it was a 4.87. So that's what doomed him. Like Ben barely played in college because he was so raw. And he transferred from Michigan to Michigan State or vice versa.
Yeah, he had it right the first time. Michigan to Michigan State.
Yeah, but he's a great athlete. He's a great athlete. Like TJ had to overcome the knock that he was a terrible athlete. And he remade his body. That guy from day one to when he left, he completely remade his body. And I think he ran 4.87 once in his entire life. Like he had a bad day and everybody labels him, and he became this big time player. And he's still a good all-ball linebacker in Chicago, which tells you in two different spots he was big. So I'm not going to go that far, but I do want Ben Van Sumeren. I don't have confidence in these other guys. I think Nakobe can play, but man, he can't even find cleats to wear, Ed. I can't count on that guy.
Well, so you're saying that lightning's not going to strike twice with Ben Van Sumeren, I guess, compared to TJ Edwards. You're right. Edwards was a better prospect, but who knows? Maybe some Van Sumeren can come in and do it. I don't know. I like Devin White. I think that, he's at a crossroads of his career. I think that if he wants to continue his career, and he knows this, he's going to have to come out and he's going to have to perform. Otherwise, he's on a 1-year deal. If he doesn't do the kind of things that he wants to do, he's going to wash out, or he's going to end up going to another team for a 1-year deal, making less. This is a big year for him. He knows it. And I think that tends to motivate a lot of guys. So if he stays healthy, I think Devin White could be kind of, one of the better free agent signings in this class. I know it's a big if, but I think, the motivation factor is going to be huge for him.
TJ Edwards, to me, is a reminder every time I think about it that Howie's not going to change his ways at linebacker. You take an undrafted guy, you build him up into a great linebacker in the league by every metric.
Yeah.
And then when the contract time comes, you let him walk for – it's not like he got paid, big bucks. He got paid decent contract, but $7 or $8 million a year from Chicago, and Howie lets him walk right out the door. Johnny Mack, as you always say, that's a guy you want to parade. You want to show, look at what
I would have took pride. Now, I always say about TJ, and he might have just wanted to go home.
I guess.
Yeah. Because he was a Bears fan growing up. He grew up just outside of Chicago. Maybe he wanted to play for the Bears, and the Eagles wanted to sign him. I don't know if that's the case. But yeah, he's somebody I would have took pride in. I would have said, look what I found.
Yeah.
If I'm a GM. And it didn't work out. But that's the biggest issue with the Eagles on paper. It remains all-ball linebacker to me. But the 5th round picks, you talked about Trevor Keegan. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. has a path to playing time, at least because of the issues at all-ball linebacker. And then Aniyah Smith was the first of the 3 5th-round picks. Eagles might finally have that manufactured touch player they can't seem to find that other teams have. But are we putting too much? These are 5th-round picks. I like them all. I see potential in them all. But maybe we got to pump the brakes a little bit. Maybe that's for a year or two down the road. 5th-round picks. There's a reason they're 5th-round picks, right?
Right. And, Johnny Walker, what was he, a 6th-round pick? Another receiver. You have to pump the brakes. You have to develop these guys. That's where your coaches come in. And that's, that's going to be a process, I think. You're right. You hope maybe they can come in and contribute in some way. They're not going to come in and be superstars right out of the gate, obviously. But can they come in and contribute? Can they come in and learn the game kind of in baptism under fire while they're on the field, instead of just sitting on the sideline and watching and studying in meetings. Can they translate onto the field and get some experience there? But just going back to the linebacker spot, John, would you sign Zach Cunningham? I mean, look at the cornerbacks. They're bringing in, everybody to play corner, and we have a glut of players at that position. Would you bring in Cunningham and add him to what they've already done at linebacker?
Yeah, I would have, but I think that is, if they didn't sign Devin White, I think Devin White took his spot. And if you're asking me, would I rather have Zach Cunningham than Devin White? Yes. Obviously, Devin White's more athletic. He's a bigger name. I get the people that think the light switch is going to go off, but he's played 5 years. I don't think it goes off. And the same thing I say with Paris Campbell as the third receiver. He's played too long for the light switch to go off at this point. So I would rather have Zach Cunningham, but they sort of made their decision with Devin White. I don't even mind Oren Burks as the third linebacker. I think that's a good role for him as the top backup. He's a good special teams player. I think that was a good signing. You draft Trot. That's a good developmental guy to pair with Ben Mansumran. Maybe one of the two hits. You're looking for one of the two. So I would rather have the player I can trust, and that's Zach Cunningham, rather than to me, how he's swinging for the fences. It's all about launch angle with Devin White, and he's probably going to strike out.
Well, I disagree. I think I'd rather have White based on the motivation factor that, maybe this lights a fire under him. So I'd take White. Who I would sign, though, at linebacker to bring in, if you're talking about bringing in like a Sean Stevens at cornerback, I'd bring back Sean Bradley. He was a good special teams player, well-liked in the locker room, still out there. I know he's coming off, I think it was an Achilles that he had.
Achilles, yeah.
So, that's not easy to do, although Brandon Graham handled it just fine in his 30s when he came back from his. So, to me, I'd bring in Sean Bradley and see what he can give you. See if he can't crack his way onto this roster. But I don't have any problem with them signing White over Cunningham. I would not bring Cunningham back at this point. I think you roll the dice with White. Maybe you sign Bradley, see if he can find a way onto this roster.
Ed Kracz from SI.com joining us. Make sure you follow Ed on Twitter at KratzE. Ed, real quick, I want to ask you on the offensive side of the ball, what you're thinking at slot wide receiver. Johnny Mack wrote a good article about Anais Smith on SI.com. I think he's a good prospect. I think he fits the slot mold, maybe better than some of the players they've had in the past, but it seems to be a wheel at that position, and they have a great 1 and 2, but they haven't been able to find their slot. What do you think goes on at that position, or who do you think wins that spot at that position?
Yeah, again, I mentioned Covey kind of being in trouble here. I would really like to see them see what Covey can give you in the slot. Anais Smith is, they're taking it slowly with him. He had the stress fracture that they discovered at the combine in early March, and they sent him home, so he didn't run. And maybe that was to the Eagles' benefit. Maybe had he run and he's shown speed, and maybe he was able to go through the drills, the 3-cone, all that other stuff, maybe he would have risen up into the earlier on the third day, maybe an early 4th rounder. He wouldn't have been there for Philly to take. So, maybe it's to their benefit that he didn't work out, but they're going to take it slowly with him. I think he's certainly a guy that can do it. His production wasn't really what you'd like to see at A&M. He does have that running back background. I think in his sophomore year, he had 49 carries, almost 300 yards, 4 rushing touchdowns. That's certainly intriguing. But, he had 7 different quarterbacks at Texas A&M. I mean, so that could be a reason for his production not being what you would like to see. But I think for this team, I think he'll be in the mix for the slot corner. And I think Devontae Smith could be in the slot. I think they're going to run a couple guys through the slot, and bring in maybe, Paris Campbell or Devontae Parker, someone as your other receiver on the outside. If you put Smith down there, I'm not sure both of those guys make this team. Especially
is there a bigger clip on this team, Ed, from starter to backups than receiver? You go from AJ and Devontae down to Paris Campbell and Devontae Parker.
Well, it's hard to find, a trio
No, it
of
is,
receivers
but
that are,
I'd like to have a little more juice at wide receiver 3, and hopefully it could be Anaya Smith. He did come back for his pro day, ran a 4.55, which is not good. But maybe the stress fracture was still, he's not practicing, so maybe it bothered him.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
looks faster than that on the film.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it shakes out. But yeah, I mean, maybe Johnny Wilson. Give me something. I need some
Johnny
juice.
Wilson's a pretty tall slot, 6'7". I mean, the thing I like about Johnny Wilson is he came out and talked about Harold Carmichael when he asked who he emulates his game after, being a 6'7" guy, and he said Harold Carmichael. I mean, Harold Carmichael last played in like 1982.
He probably just met Harold. Harold
at least Jalen Hurts would be able to see Johnny Wilson over a Mekhi
That's
Becton,
true.
a 6'8" Mekhi Becton playing guard.
That's true.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough line of sight there, tough vision. But yeah, the slot still has to be sorted, but I think Anaya Smith does fit well there. I think Devontae Smith can rotate in there, give him some slot reps, and maybe Britton Covey. I mean, again, he did some good things on the scout team last year, probably deserved an opportunity to play a little bit more at receiver.
I think he did. I think he's a damn good. I think people assuming Anaya Smith can be the punt returner. They don't realize how good Britton Covey was last year as the punt returner.
14.4 yards a return for Britton Covey last year. Anaya Smith, I think, 14.3 yards per punt return, 20 punt returns.
There's a big
A&M last year. It was a huge difference, for sure. But I like the fact that Anaya Smith said he came in and they looked at XFL tape, studied the kickoffs in the XFL, because that's what the NFL is going to go with, is these kickoffs. And that to me shows, and if it was on his own, good for him. That shows, ambitious, he's ready for it. He wants to learn it. He wants to do it. So there's things to like about all these players. When they brought all these players out to us, I was very impressed with, how
5 red stars. It was the mentality off season.
They're all good guys. You just hope they can play at some point. Like you said, fifth rounders for a reason. Can they play? I don't know, but they're certainly good guys. They're certainly going to be good guys in the locker room, but we'll see if they can develop.
Real quick, and I kept you too late. I apologize, Ed. Cubby, I hate to think this, but he's so honest. Do you think that hurts him? Do you think the Eagles want him to shut up?
I hope not.
I hope not either. But
I hope they let people be people and express themselves and not have to kind of put a lid on their personalities. I don't think that's a very good culture to have at all. So I'm going to say no, but maybe that's more wishful thinking, because I think you should just let people be themselves. And Britton's, like you said, he's a good guy to talk to. He's very honest. He'll tell it like it is. And he's very popular in the clubhouse. You talk to other players in that locker room. They all like him, because of his honesty.
Not to like.
So I would hope that that's not what the Eagles are thinking, is, Covey tells the truth too often, or he speaks out too much. Or
I hate to think that way, but
I'm going to say
no. In between a bunch of players, I guess everything gets, goes into consideration.
Like if you're AJ, you can get away with it. You can say whatever the hell you want, and they'll deal with it. But if you're the back end, I don't know. Maybe I'm too conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, I don't like it. I hope that's not it. That's a bad culture if they're talking to him about.
That's a good point. Listen, Howie, that's a bad culture if you're thinking that way, because I think Britton Covey was the best punt returner in football last season, and people that think you can replace that, it's going to be a while.
Yeah, that's the other seemingly deep part of this roster now. There's all of a sudden a bunch of guys that can return. I guess after they change the kickoff rules, they go and get a bunch of guys. But, Ed, we appreciate you joining the show, man. Thank you for sticking on for a while. Make sure everybody reads Ed's work at si.com and follow him on Twitter at Kracz. Thanks, Ed, for joining the show.
Yep. Thanks, guys. See ya.
Thanks, bud.
There's Ed Kracz joining us from si.com, John's co-patriot. Good stuff from Ed Kracz there. Me and John will come back. We'll kick around a little bit of the wide receiver 3 talk. Johnny Mack wrote a nice article on SI about Anaya Smith. I know they're taking it slow with him after the injury, but Johnny Mack, he's that manufactured touch guy, which I know you're very opinionated on. So we'll come back and we'll kick that around. Coming up later in hour number 2, Scott Grayson from Fox 29. So good stuff planned in hour number 2. Make sure you guys like the show, as it's the best thing you can do to help us grow. Trying to get to 100 likes during the live show. How close are we? If you guys can alert me of that, let's get to 100 likes during the live show. Plenty watching, over 750 across JAKIB platforms and almost 400 on YouTube. So good stuff from all of our viewers today. We appreciate it. Stick around. We'll be back to talk about wide receiver 3 and then Scotty Grayson coming up in about 15 minutes.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.